Oh, happy Thanksgiving weekend, guys. Hope you all had a good Thanksgiving. USMNT Top 10 is back. How have we been doing? What's up? Decent weekend, maybe not amazing weekend, not like some of the earlier weekends we had to start the season, but better, definitely better than some of the weekends we've had. Speaking of weekends, what have you guys been up to this weekend? Discord link is put there at the top. I linked the I pinned the Discord link. Too much turkey and alcohol over the weekend, guys. But yes, it's there if anybody wants to join. I don't know if President Chip is here yet or if he will be here today. But what's up? How have you been? Rogelio Zarala Cabrera. I annihilated that like button. The KC Sports Nerd Mexico game was rigged. So rigged. Well, not rigged, but everything was done to make it as possible for Mexico to, make Copa America on that first round. Anthony Booker, 6 o'clock in the morning here in Hong Kong. Greetings from the other side of the world. God damn. Do you live in Hong Kong? You visiting, Anthony? RD Revolver, ciao. Cosa fai? Carlos Membreno, yo. As possible. I think I just coined a new phrase. 80s nostalgia guy. Pete is a sexy man. Why, yes. Yes, he is. Jack Pineda. Well, here we go. Pete has really been on the alcohol. I actually have been drinking more this weekend. I had a lot of events to attend this weekend. Thursday was Turkey Day. So, of course, you drink on Turkey Day. And then Friday went out bowling for a friend's birthday. Saturday, so we drank beer while bowling. Saturday was brunch. Always, always boozy. And then last night I went out with another friend. We went to Bar Sinister, so more drinking. So, gonna have to get back onto the gym tomorrow before I become a pudgy old fart. Any update on Koleosho committing? Not at the moment. No, not at the moment. We probably won't hear much about this until either March, Nations League, or potentially Copa America. But again, this last window, he was with Italy's under 21s, didn't start for them. So came off the bench. It's still possible. Mimosas for the win. Yes, BMR. Lots of mimosas for Saturday's brunch. Any alcohol suggestions? Oh, Jack, it really just depends what you're into. For me, I like whiskeys. I like bourbons. Those are my thing. But I also like a cocktail, a good cocktail, like pina colada is always good. Caipirinha is great. You can't go wrong with any of those. A good gin and tonic is fantastic. It really just depends what you're into, I guess. Rodon deserves another call up. He isn't that terrible. Oh, geez. We're trolling now, 80s nostalgia guy. How can the guy who said that I'm sexy also say that? That makes me think you don't know what you're talking about. And I'm not really all that sexy, man. Feeling insecure. Manhattan's not bad played out. Margarita's always a great call. BMR 209. December 7th is the Copa America draw. Yes, I think TAC will live stream it, and then we'll do a post game or a post-draw reaction on my channel. Why can I not talk today? Again, Pete, it's the booze. Chill with the booze and you'll be better. He has to get his bad takes out. What you think of Griffin Yow? We'll talk about him. That Pulisic shot that was saved over the weekend would have been a nice goal. Yes, it would. Let's hop right in here to the top 10 guys. Aiden Morris. Aiden Morris is number 10 on the top 10, helping the Columbus Crew get a 2-0 win over TAC's Orlando City. Played 120 minutes, got 1 assist, had 88 out of 95 passes, which was a match high, 2 out of 2 successful dribbles, 14 passes into the final third, 5 out of 6 accurate long balls, 9 out of 14 ground duels, 1 out of 1 aerial duel, 5 fouls drawn, and 3 fouls committed. So, here's the thing with Aiden Morris. He has not looked good for the U.S. this year, right? He's gotten some opportunities, both in Jan Camp and a little bit in the Gold Cup, and then he disappeared after the group stage. It was very strange. But he hasn't looked good for the U.S. And even in this game, the reason he's not higher on this list today is partially because MLS, but partially because also he was not faultless in conceding some chances to Orlando, which I will talk about. Personally, I think Aiden Morris, who is Olympic eligible, by the way, needs to try and get a move to Europe because the speed of play is not helping him here, right? It's not really helping him. He gets away with a lot. Sixes in MLSs don't get pressed. They have lots of space. And he had a really nice shot on goal where they literally let him walk towards the box and shoot. And that's just, it's a function of being in MLS. They don't press the sixes. So sixes have lots of space. That's probably why he managed to get 88 passes out. I don't think he'd be getting 88 passes if they were actually putting pressure on sixes and defensive midfielders in MLS, right? But that being said, he did have a pretty good game. The stats show it, and some of his, the highlights show it too. This was the assist to Christian Ramirez on the opening goal. This is the end of the move, of the play, where he crosses it, in the box, and Ramirez darts in front and scores. But, and this will be on Patreon tomorrow on the highlights of this video, the highlights version, he actually won the ball outside the box, made an overlapping run on the right, and then received the ball back, and then crossed it for Christian Ramirez after beating his man. So it was a nice assist. It wasn't some gimme assist. It was a nice assist, and certainly, for the opening goal where the pressure was very, very high in that moment, right? Ivan Enriquez says, truth be told, Aiden Morris's level is MLS Pete. So just because you say he should seek a move to MLS doesn't mean coaches even want him over in Europe. Well, there's different levels of Europe, Ivan. I agree with you. I don't think he's a top 5 player, a top 5 league player. But I think it's definitely possible he could play in a mid-table Eredivisie team, which I think would help him. So, when I say Europe, I don't mean he needs to go to Milan or Chelsea. I say he needs to go somewhere where they prioritize technical development, where there's real pressure, where there's, the speed of play is higher, where there's actual stakes, where there's somebody gunning for his spot. And, find a level that's above MLS, but not so far above MLS that he can't reach it, right? And maybe he'll never be a top 5 league player. You're probably correct in that. But we want all of our players pushing themselves and getting better, right? Even if it's at the margins, even if it's at 10%. If going to the Eredivisie makes him 10% better or 15% better, then that's good for the USMNT. That's sort of how I see it, but that's my philosophy, and not everybody agrees. This was the shot that he took, which was a really nice shot that was actually saved by Pedro Galese. But you see these 3 players that surrounded him? He walked into this little triangle of bodies, and not a single one of them bothered to put pressure on him before he took this shot off. Now, it's MLS, okay? Defending is optional. So, it's like, yeah, okay, great. You wouldn't get that kind of space in a good league, which is why I say he needs to leave. But regardless of whether or not there was pressure, it was still a really nice shot and was almost a good goal. Number 9, and we're staying with the Columbus Crew. Olympic eligible goalkeeper Patrick Schulte played also for Columbus against Orlando, played the full 120 minutes, had a clean sheet, and made 3 very, very good saves to keep Columbus in it. He also had 23 out of 35 accurate passes, 6 out of 18 accurate long balls. Sesse Pete, what's up? Happy holidays. Thank you. So I put Patrick Schulte right now, sort of in the category of, Roman Celentano and Drake Callender. How old is he? He's 22. So he's still Olympic eligible. Him, Chris Brady, and Gabriel Slonina are the Olympic keepers. Now, or are Olympic eligible. We'll see which 2 out of 3 end up going. I'd be comfortable with most of them, although I personally prefer Brady and Slonina. But it's good to have backups in case Chicago's like, nah, you can't have Brady. Then Patrick Schulte could be the backup to Slonina. We'll see. But he had some really, really nice saves to keep Columbus in it, particularly towards the end when Orlando were coming after them. By the way, I talked a little bit about Aiden Morris. This was not the save, but there were a couple of saves that Schulte had to make where Morris was partially at fault for. This was he made 2 saves with his outstretched leg. This was one of them from close range off of, I think that's Facundo. I'm not sure. But yeah, so he makes himself big, makes his, stretches and makes the save with his leg. This was the other one from Duncan Maguire. Just comes off his line, covers the angle well enough, and is able to make that save to keep Columbus in it. Otherwise, this could, go a long way. And usually when it comes to the top 10, guys, I don't put a lot of stakes or a lot of merit in MLS performances just because the league is so poor. But in the playoffs where there's more stakes and the, intensity is ramped up, I put a little more stakes in that in the playoffs than I do in the regular season, where it really doesn't matter what you do for most of the season. Speaking of Olympic eligible goalkeepers, Gabriel Slonina is low-key having a very, very good season for KAS Eupen on loan from Chelsea. And although they did lose this game 2-0 to Cercle Brugge, this is not Club Brugge, where McKenzie plays. This is Cercle Brugge. He played 90 minutes. They did concede 2 goals, but he made 7 saves, 3 of which were diving saves. He's also 16 out of 22 passes complete, right? And 4 out of 10 long balls completed, which means he's completing all of his short passes. And this is not just stats. I watch the all touches comps for Gabriel Slonina on Wyscout most weeks. And even under pressure, Eupen is playing out of the back, which is exactly the environment that he needs. He needs to do he needs to improve with his feet. His, passing, particularly under pressure, his distribution is technically quite poor and has been for some time. It's getting better and hopefully will continue to get better now that he's working on it and being forced to play that way week in and week out. But he had a really good, honestly, he's managing to sort of single-handedly keep Eupen. They're technically back in the relegation zone now, but the way it works in the Belgian league is there's no automatic relegation. The bottom 4 enter a playoff to see who gets relegated. So right now they are top of that bottom 4. So they're just hovering around the edges. And if they're going to escape relegation, I think a lot of it is going to have to rely on Gabriel Slonina, for better or for worse. But he made some really nice saves. Unfortunately, guys, I do not have any highlights on that because my Wyscout just went, oh, you've exceeded your amount of clips watched for the month. So I have to wait until December 1st to get my new 170 minutes. Wyscout's weird like that. He's made 60 saves this season, guys. 60 saves in 13 games. So you can do the math. That's, almost 5 saves per game. Save percentage is decently high, 66% of shots conceded. Now, Eupen are just terrible. They're such a leaky back line. They've conceded 30 goals in those 13 games, right? 2.5 goals per game. But what's really interesting to me is his pass accuracy. If you look down here, it's 78.4%. And that's impressive because that's what we need from Gabriel Slonina. It's not like they never play long. They do play long, but more often than not, they do try to play out of the back even when they're under significant pressure. And so I'm just happy that he's getting that experience. Remember, guys, he's still 19. Like Gaga is, we've known about him for a while since his Chicago days, right? But reality is there are very few 19-year-old keepers starting in Europe's top 10 leagues. Very, very few. So he's just there for the year, Jack Pineda. He's there for the season, and then after that, Chelsea will decide what they want to do with him. Some people are saying, oh, he should stay at No, guys. At 20, he's not ready to start for a mid-table Premier League club. He's just not ready for the Premier League. That's a huge, huge jump from the Belgian league to the Premier League. And he's still very young, and goalkeeping is a position where you do require experience and it requires time. But hopefully he can get a loan out to maybe a better league next year, such as, I don't know, maybe the Eredivisie could be an interesting league for him, right? Or maybe the Portuguese league, something like that, where the level is a bit tougher. And so if he can prove himself there for one more season, then okay, maybe we see what he looks like at 21. But really, before any of that, he'll probably be our starting goalkeeper in the Olympics, depending on whether or not Brady gets released. Him, Schulte, Brady are the 3 guys contending for that starting spot. So we'll see what happens with Gaga Slonina. But right now he's in a great place to develop. He's getting minutes. He's getting the right kind of minutes where he's facing shots, where he's playing out of the back. And I'm just really happy to see it. And good for him for making the 7 saves. Sergino Dest had a rough week after his absolute meltdown against Trinidad and Tobago and getting sent off and all the drama and the hate that came with that. But he low-key came back quite well against FC Twente and had a really good game. Played 90 minutes, helped them keep a clean sheet. 91% passing accuracy, 3 out of 3 successful dribbles, 4 out of 6 accurate long balls, 0 out of 2 accurate crosses. He's playing on the left, so I don't put a lot of weight in that, to be honest. 5 out of 8 ground duels won, 0 out of 2 aerial duels won, and 1 foul drawn. Not like a, oh my God, incredible performance, but a very solid performance, I'd say. And just to come back from that mentally and to put in a good shift shows, some maturity. And he has to keep that going, right? He's still going to have some doubters out there and some people who are not happy. But I was happy with Sergino Dest's performance against Twente. I remember Twente was not some relegation team. Before this game, they were 3rd in the league. It went PSV and then Feyenoord and then Twente. So this was potentially a team that was, challenging for a Champions League spot. BMR 209, you can make fun of Chelsea for being a mid-table club. They definitely have ambitions to win it and will spend the type of money to do that. Yeah, the problem, BMR, is not that Chelsea can't spend. The problem is that they spend obtusely. They spend poorly. They pay way too much for terrible players while not really having a plan or a vision, right? So it ends up becoming a mishmash of overpriced players who underperform. And then when you do that too much over the last year or two, which they've done, particularly since Boli took over, it's just not a Champions League team anymore. It's just not. And of course, I'm saying it a little bit tongue-in-cheek about Chelsea, but they finished mid-table last season, and they are solidly in mid-table this season too. So I don't think it's unfair to call them a mid-table team anymore. I think poor spending and poor management over the last 2 years has really cost them. And now they really are a mid-table team. And I honestly think if they manage to finish in the top 8, that'll be a good season for Chelsea, considering the players that they have. Considering the player. Obviously, they have players to be in the top 6, right? But the players don't suit each other. A lot of those players are actually not top 6 level, I'll be honest, right? So I expect Chelsea to finish about where they are now, about mid-table. Yeah, but my point is that Chelsea isn't a mid-table club spending-wise, so the players that Gaga would compete with for a spot aren't mid-table players. Oh, yeah, no, of course. Of course not. Obviously competing with to be a Chelsea starting goalkeeper, it's just not going to happen anytime soon, right? He's just not ready, and I wouldn't want that spotlight on him. He needs to finish this year well. He needs to have a strong Olympic showing, and then he needs to get another loan out to another good league. And then if he really shows up well there, then maybe they can look at a Premier League loan, or a championship loan, potentially. But let's just see how he performs. It's too early to call right now. All right. After Sergino Dest, number 6 is Griffin Yow. Now, not a lot of you remember Griffin Yow, probably, or maybe you do. But he was a part of that 2019. It was the 2019 Under-17 World Cup. He was a DC United player, or academy player. And he was not very good. He was good in the CONCACAF championships, but it's CONCACAF. And he was very poor at the actual World Cup, Griffin Yow. He was a DC player for a little bit. Even wasn't that great for DC United. Ended up bouncing around. Ended up at Westerlo with Brian Reynolds. He's not a starter for them, but he did come off the bench, played 13 minutes, and got a nice goal. Who is that? I know a lot of you don't know Griffin Yow, and I don't expect you to. Championship loan next year. Oh, you're talking about for Gaga, Brian? Yeah, potentially. Depends on the championship team. Do they think a 20-year-old is ready to start for them? Right? Like, sure, Aaron Ramsdale started for Bournemouth at 18, but, he's English. That's just the reality. And I don't know if I don't know if Gabriel Slonina now is as good as Aaron Ramsdale was when he was, 18. So I don't know. I guess we'll see. A lot of you don't know Griffin Yow, but this was the goal. This was the goal. Taco, chill. Taco. He saw a squirrel. My apologies. Yes, Reynolds plays for Westerlo also. So Griffin Yow came on the last 13 minutes and pulled a goal back for them. They ended up losing this game 3-2. But it was a nice little finish. Took it on his right foot off a sort of a, he actually left the defender for dead with his first touch. It was a very good first touch into space and then placed it in the far corner. Oh, John Anthony Brooks, after being benched the last 2 weeks, got to start again against Mainz and helped Hoffenheim to get a 1-1 draw. The goal that Mainz scored was not at all on him. Came down the left side of the field, played 90 minutes, had an 88% passing accuracy, had 9 passes into the final third. That's high for a center back. 5 out of 10 accurate long balls, 6 clearances, 6 recoveries, 2 out of 4 ground duels won, and 4 out of 7 aerial duels won. It could have gone one or two ways when he got benched by Matarazzo, right? He could have pouted. He could have, just sort of, it's not fair, whatever. Not really, but he probably put the work in training. He probably had a conversation with the coach. He probably showed up hard in training, and he got another opportunity to start again, and he looked really good. So probably going to continue to start for them so long as he continues this level of performance. Remember when MLS fanboys claimed Zimmerman was better than... I know. Zimmerman couldn't start in the Bundesliga. That's just the truth. And he's been starting in the Bundesliga his whole life. It was a weird goal. I guess the outside center back and wing back who was caught way upfield. Yeah, it was also the way that Matarazzo had them playing. They played in a really high line with the wing backs getting really high up the field. So they were just caught in transition. It's not the end of the world. It's how Matarazzo likes his teams to play, and it just means you have to be good in transition. Are you worried about our keeper situation? I'm worried about Matt Turner, right? Because Matt Turner isn't playing anymore, and I don't know if he's going to win that starting spot back anytime soon, right? So it's like, and then you combine that. Taco, stop. Taco, this is Taco right now. Taco, where's the squirrel? Hey, no jumping. No, Zim could not start in the Bundesliga, the Z. He could not. Believe me, he would be starting in the Bundesliga if he could. Zim can't pass the ball to save his life. He can't. Yeah, so where was I? I'm sorry. I was talking about Brooks, I guess. Somebody tell me where I was. I lost my train of thought with Taco losing his shit over the squirrels. Taco wants to compete. He's got real hops. He's got Malinois in him, so he's really got some hops. He'd be a great aerial center back. Like Zim. He's the Walker Zimmerman of my household because he wins everything in the air with his hops, but he can't pass to save his life. Keepers. Yeah, I'm sorry. So Turner, combine that with the mistake and being benched, it worries me. The good news is it looks like Ethan Horvath is going to get a move somewhere this January, hopefully somewhere where he's starting. So, that'll be something at least. Turner, I can't really see Turner getting a move because they're not just going to let him go because he's not playing. He just signed a contract with them. He has to try and fight to earn back that spot from Vlachodimos. And that may or may not. I didn't watch Nottingham Forest this weekend. I know they lost. I don't know if any of the goals were on Vlachodimos, but Vlachodimos has a history of being error-prone too, so it's not impossible. I think for now it's still Turner, probably until, after the Copa America. I think, Turner has shown that he's reliable enough over the last 2-3 years to continue to be our starter. Now, after Copa America, we're looking at, the 2026 World Cup. What does Gabriel Slonina look like in the Olympics? How is Brady continuing to, progress as a keeper? These are the future. What does Diego Cochin's future look like? But reality is these guys, Turner is for now our number one because those guys are not ready. Zach Steffen is injured somewhere being 9th choice keeper for Manchester City. I don't know what's up with Zach Steffen these days. Zach Steffen needs to probably come back to MLS, but also he needs to stay healthy. Taco, can you stop? All right, go out. No, not out. Out the door. Out the bedroom. Taco, let's go. Out. You're ruining the stream. All right. Taco has been banished like John Brooks. He's been banished because he threw a chair. Yeah, Zach Steffen, needs a restart in his career. Sean Johnson. Sean Johnson is like 49 years old and hasn't been good for years. He's like a slightly better Brad Guzan at this point. But yeah, like Matt Turner needs to fight and win his spot back. That's the truth. Fight it out in training. This is what it means to be in the Premier League, right? Like, you're in the Premier League. There's going to be competition. Even the backup goalkeepers in the Premier League are good. So, and, Vlad Chidimos, he's not this amazing world-class keeper. So it's not impossible for him to go win his spot back, but he needs to fight for it, right? Back to John Anthony Brooks. He won his spot back when he's given an opportunity. Thankfully, Matarazzo gave him the opportunity that Greg Berhalter never did because he's way too in love with Aaron Long and Walker Zimmerman and Miles Robinson. Number 4, not technically a USMNT player yet, but USMNT eligible still, so I will count him. Played 81 minutes for Burnley against West Ham, won 1 penalty, almost won 2. 12 out of 13 passes completed, so extremely low for a winger. 1 out of 4 successful dribbles, also low for a winger. 4 out of 12 ground duels won, extremely low for any outfield player. 0 out of 1 aerial duels won. 3 fouls drawn, that's good, but 3 fouls also committed. And this is the truth about Koleosho. He's a bit one-dimensional as a player. Now, that dimension can be very effective at times. But in the long term, it'll be interesting to see what happens to him, because when you watch Luca Koleosho play, he is a speed merchant. He's not extremely technical. He's not great in possession. He's not great in combination. He's a speed merchant. And that will only get you so far. He's young now, right? He's young now. But reality is, once you're 2021, if you're not improving at that point, then you probably won't be a Premier League player for very, very long. Or, like some people are saying in the chat, if you get injured, then your speed gets affected. Now, do we want to recruit Koleosho? Of course we do. This is a guy who definitely offers us more than, someone like Aronson. And look, depth is necessary, and we need depth. And at 19, he can still continue to improve. But I think we should pump the brakes a little on the overhyped excitement for Luca Koleosho, because although it is exciting that he's starting in the Premier League at 19 years old, I do think some people are acting like he would start over Tim Weah. And I just don't think that's the case. I think Tim Weah is a better player than he is. I think Tim Weah is more well-rounded. I think he's more goal dangerous. I think he is a better crosser of the ball, even though I don't think Weah is as fast as Koleosho. What's interesting, guys, is we're really coming up with a team that's going to be very, very good in transition, and yet we refuse to play in transition. Like Tim Weah, Christian Pulisic, Folarin Balogun. Going to talk more about him later. Giovanni Reyna. These guys are excellent in transition. Gio's very good in possession for sure, and he's very good at breaking down a low block. But so much of our team is actually so much better in transition than they are in possession. And I understand, obviously, if we're playing teams, worse than us, or even teams at a similar level than us, I'm fine. We should be a possession team. We should be the protagonists. But when we try to go toe-to-toe with the big teams, not only is our possession ineffective and constipated, but we're so poor in transition that even when we have transition moments, we don't take them because we try to still outpossess the team as we gradually build the ball upfield, right? And it seems like our player pool more and more is trending towards, what if we became a low block team against, the best sides in the world and hit them in transition? That could be the difference between a quarterfinal and a semifinal, if you are willing to play that way. Sadly, we've never seen Greg try to do that. We've only ever seen Greg try to outpossess teams, big teams I'm talking about here. And that's disappointing. That's disappointing because I don't think it's going to help us in the long run. But this was the penalty. He actually had an earlier penalty. Now, both of these penalty shouts are questionable. You can see in the still that he does kind of get caught, right? And his back foot there, he gets caught by the West Ham defender. He throws himself to the ground like he got shot. And he did the same thing in the first penalty shout that was overturned by VAR. Did he get touched? Yeah, it felt like, though, he leaned into the contact and then threw himself. So he absolutely sold both, but I think one penalty between the two is probably fair. And Jay Rodriguez scored the penalty, but unfortunately Burnley still lost, probably heading for relegation. Look, maybe a year in the championship is not a terrible thing for Luca Koleosho. But we're also getting ahead of ourselves because he isn't ours yet. He's still technically playing for Italy's under-21s. Number 3, Malik Tillman. Malik Tillman played only 23 minutes for PSV against Twente, but came on and had a really, really nice assist. Now, this shows us the moment of the assist where he managed to slide Bakayoko through here. But what this doesn't show us is that was his first touch. The ball slid, the ball was played to him by Jordan Teze. And instead of taking a touch, he was, sideways on, as he should have been, opened his body up, and his first touch, which was a gorgeous, gorgeous through ball for Bakayoko to go in and score it. I think that brings him to 6 goal contributions for PSV Eindhoven now. Let me double check if that's true. But considering the amount of minutes that he's got, he's been, what a signing for them, right? I mean, they signed him on loan. They do also have, the option to buy him. But even if they don't take that option, he already has, 7, 9. He's got 5 goals and 4 assists in 595 minutes of play this season. Think about that. 9 goals in 600 minutes. That means he's getting a goal contribution roughly every 70 minutes or less, 60 minutes. Every 60 minutes, roughly 65 minutes that he plays for them, he's getting a goal contribution. So good for Malik. What's his biggest weakness right now? Consistency, and also the defensive side of his game. A little bit like Gio Reyna in that sense, where a little bit just half a second slow when they lose the ball, half a second slow to press. He needs to work on the defensive side of his game. But it's production-wise, he's been really, really good, and he's still just 21, right? So, if he can get better, which we, obviously believe he will, and I think Peter Bosz is the right coach for him and even for Dest. Both of these guys are guys that tend to be a little bit off their rockers at times, sleeping in, wearing basketball jerseys to Messi's farewell. Both of them are, kids who are just like, maybe they haven't really all put it together, mentally yet in terms of their professionalism and their mentality and attitude. And that's okay. We know from science that, your prefrontal cortex doesn't actually develop until you're 25. So I don't want to be too hard on them, but, you want to be a pro player. That's the aspect of their game both of them are going to need to work on if they want to reach their full potential, because they're both immensely talented. But I do think Peter Bosz is the right coach for both of them. Number 2, Tanner Tessman. I don't put a lot of weight usually on Serie B, but reality is Tanner Tessman played 90 minutes for Venezia against Bari, got 1 goal and 1 assist, and they were both good goals and assist. It was a good goal and a good assist as well. He created 2 chances, won 2 out of his 3 tackles, 3 out of 3 ground duels won, 1 out of 1 aerial duels won as well. This was the assist, nice little slip through pass that his teammate went on to score, and then this was his goal. The keeper came off his line to make a save, and the ball rolled out to him outside the box, and he stayed very composed to curl that into the back of the net. Venezia are well top of the table right now. If they can keep this form up, then it looks like they will be in Serie A again next year. And Tanner Tessman will have a very, had played a big hand in that. Now, look, do I think Tanner Tessman is a top 5 league player? my concern with Tessman is the technical deficiency. Like in Serie A and Serie B, you can get away with it. In Serie A, maybe as a low-level team as a backup. I don't think he got the right kind of development from a young. He looks very stiff on the ball, right? He doesn't look smooth, especially as a 6 in a good league where you're going to be under pressure, where you have to conduct, where you have to receive the ball in tight spaces, where you have to distribute, dictate tempo. You need to be very comfortable on the ball. Tessman doesn't really look like that to me. But, you never know. I mean, maybe he could be like a French league, lower level French league player, for a team that's just above the relegation zone, sort of intermittent starter. It's hard to know exactly what his ceiling is, but with Tessman, I'm worried about the technical deficiency, right? That being said, it's good to see him, really helping Venezia to get out of Serie B. And last but not least, the man, the myth, the legend, scores his 5th goal for Monaco after a disappointing international break for Balogun. A beautiful goal, a really nice goal, but it wasn't just the goal. He was also involved in the other goal that Monaco scored, although they did lose that game 5-2 to PSG. Played 90 minutes, scored a goal, had 1 goal involvement, 5 out of 10 ground duels, 5 out of 12 ground duels won, 4 fouls drawn, and 0 out of 4 successful dribbles. I wonder if those successful dribbles were the 4 fouls that he drew. So yeah, look, Balogun, I put this on Twitter. We need to start using him better. But first of all, the goal that Minamino scored was him putting pressure on Donnarumma. And then Donnarumma literally just passed it out to Minamino, and Minamino went and scored it. It's not really on Balogun. It was terrible, terrible distribution from Donnarumma, who, was being talked about as the heir to Gianluigi Buffon, but has made some really high-profile mistakes for club and country. This was one of them, Sadly, PSG still won this 5-2 and, usurped Monaco's place at the top of the table. But that was his involvement in the first goal. The second goal, and I want to kind of highlight, this, because sure, this is PSG, right? PSG are going to play with a high line, and that does benefit Balogun because Balogun is the kind of player. He is not a classic 9 in terms of being a target man. He's not great with his back to goal. He's not great in terms of his hold-up play. He's not great at leaping in the air to head crosses into the net. It's just not his game. Unfortunately, that is how Greg Berhalter wants his 9 to play. We saw this. We've seen this ever since Berhalter came back. We've seen Balogun try to play with his back to goal, usually with a center back really tight to him. He has to come very, very deep. His first touch when there's a striker right on his back isn't great. And Pepe is probably honestly better at that aspect of his game. But Balogun is amazing at hanging out at the shoulder of the last man, holding his run as he did here. He actually made a run previously. The ball wasn't on from Minamino, so he held his run, got back on side, and timed his burst forward perfectly to get in behind and make a great, great finish here against Donnarumma. Now, I put this on Twitter, and somebody made an excellent point. They said, Pete, you know what? Let me just read it to you, because that's probably the best way to do it. So I said, once again, Folarin Balogun showing how he's best used as a forward on the shoulder of the last man running in behind. Too often for us, he's asked to play as a target man with his back to goal, holding up play, or waiting for aerial crosses, and it's just not his game. Then somebody commented, Gerbs commented, to be fair, most teams in CONCACAF we will come up against will have an extremely low block, so it'd be difficult for Balogun to find space like that to run in behind. And he's correct. That is true. I responded with, agreed, but when we have transition moments, we have to be better about finding him sooner. Too often, we kill the transition with too many passes and allow them to set back into a block. And you could see this against Trinidad and Tobago, but in both games, right? we would have transition moments. But instead of taking advantage of Balogun's speed in behind, we would try to build again through the third slowly and allow the team to retreat and get numbers behind the ball. And then the opportunity was lost. Look, Balogun is who he is. Can he maybe improve in different aspects of his game? Sure, but I don't think he's ever going to become an elite header of the ball. He can't grow taller than 5'10" or whatever he is. I don't think he's ever going to be an elite, hold-up player either. He's not Vlahovic, and I just think it's unfair to ask him to do that for us. And sure, maybe you could even argue that against teams in a low block, we play with a 3-5-2 if you want to play with, more of a hold-up striker next to Balogun. But even against teams that don't, that sit in a low block, they will have transition moments. And in those transition moments, we are so poor at finding Balogun. It's like we managed to go out and recruit this incredible player, but we don't know how to use him correctly. And what's so angering and disturbing to me is that every fan can see it. Even people who started watching soccer 2 years ago, right, can see this. It's obvious. It doesn't take a genius to go, this is Balogun's game. Remember the goal that he scored against PSG last year? Same exact kind of goal where it was his speed in behind. Against Germany, for example, right, we had opportunities to hit them in transition, and we just never did. And it's frustrating that, everybody in this chat can see it. I can see it. Taco can see it. My girlfriend's guinea pig can see it at this point. And Berhalter can't. And he'll throw out platitudes, right? Yeah, for us, it's about, finding ways to get Balogun more involved. And I thought we could have done a better job about finding. Okay, but Greg, that's all words. What are you telling the players to do? Because either the players, you're telling them to hit Balogun early, and they're not listening to you, which means you have no command of that locker room, or you're not telling them to do it. Either way, it's a failure on Greg. So anyways, it's disappointing. I'm happy for Balogun. It's great to see. I really hope Greg Berhalter can find ways, particularly in transition, to use this speed, to use this ability on the shoulder of the last man to make these runs, his timing, his clinical finishing in those moments. That's the hope. But that's all we have for the USMNT Top 10. Smash that like button, guys, before we get into... Oh, yes, President Chip is here. Excellent. And he's the only one in the waiting room. Then we'll just talk to President Chip. Guys, if you want to hop in on the Discord and chat, the link is pinned to the top of this chat here. So hop in. President Chip will moderate. Let's pull up President Chip here. President Chip, what's up?
What's up, P? How's it going?
Good, man. Quick question. This annoying little sound every time somebody types something in the chat? Is there any way to mute that? I tried looking earlier, but I couldn't.
Oh, you just mute Discord notifications.
Just mute Discord notifications?
Yeah, and that should be able to do it.
Where do I do that? This is me showing my boomer side here. Hello?
All right, sorry, I'm back. What?
Did you do it?
Oh, no, you have to do it on your end. You have to, just mute Discord completely, and you shouldn't hear any of, the...
But if I mute Discord, will that mute the audio as well?
No, it shouldn't mute the audio thing. It should just mute the notifications.
Do you know where I can mute it?
Notifications isn't connected to... There's... Sorry, I'm just reading the chat. Guys, be nice to Pete, man. So go to, the, where at the top of the screen where it says arrow, where where the arrow is and stuff?
Yeah, here.
Yeah, so click on that, and then on the bottom it'll say, and then just go to,
notification settings?
Yeah, and you should be able to turn it off there, I think.
Okay. Oh, mute Tactical Yanks Discord server. Perfect. All right. Can you still hear me?
Yeah.
There we go. All right. Thanks. President Chip, what's up?
Hey, so I can't talk much today. I just want to get one question in though.
Yeah, go for it.
You no, I think I just phrased it together. Okay, so what in your opinion is not only the most like realistic, but also the most favorable group for us in Copa America as the draw's coming up?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's tough. Let me just pull it up because I know Tack had the tweet with the pots on it. So I can actually see it again and make sure I don't screw this up. Wow, Tack really tweets a lot, huh? Where is it? Here we go. Okay, so pot 1 is Argentina, Brazil, the U.S., and Mexico. Pot 2 is Uruguay, Ecuador, Peru, and Colombia. Tough. Yeah. I'd probably go Peru from pot 2. We want to avoid Uruguay at all costs, right? Because under Bielsa, they look like a well-oiled machine right now. So I would go Peru for pot 2. Pot 3 is Jamaica, Venezuela, Panama, and Chile. Honestly, I'd take Venezuela. I'd take either Venezuela or maybe Chile, one of those two. I don't want another CONCACAF team. I would go Peru, no. Peru, probably Chile, because Venezuela's starting to show some signs of a revival. So Chile in pot 3. And then pot 4 is Paraguay, Bolivia, and then one of Canada, Trinidad, Tobago, Costa Rica, or El Salvador. I'd probably go Bolivia because Bolivia are really only good at home because of the altitude. So I think the most favorable group would be Peru, Bolivia, and Chile. Peru, although Trinidad and Tobago, that would be, they'd have to beat Canada, but.
Yeah, but I think Canada's going to win that.
Yeah, I think so too.
But if it was some BMR said in the chat, USA, Peru, Bolivia, Canada. Wait, that's not possible because that would be 2 top 4 teams, right?
Yeah, it's 4 teams in the group: USA, Peru, Bolivia, Canada.
Oh wait, no, never mind. I thought they were. My bad. That's on me. But yeah, no, that'd be a good group as well. But yeah, I think we get out of that one easily, and then.
Yeah, I mean, if we get Uruguay, here's the worst case scenario group, in my opinion. The worst case scenario group would be Uruguay with us in pot 2. Honestly, I want to say Panama in pot 3. Panama or Jamaica. Yeah. I think both of them, because like Jamaica is a team that could be awful or really good. You just don't know what you're going to get with Jamaica. But Panama is showing real signs of looking like a really tight-knit team. And then from pot 4, I kind of don't want to face Canada. Like, I know we beat them, but it's still, I guess there's no terrible team from pot 4. Paraguay, actually. I know Paraguay aren't good, but of the pot 4 teams, I don't want to face Paraguay. Hello?
Yeah, I was also going to say, with Venezuela, no, sorry, somebody made a good point in the chat, but Venezuela's on a high right now. I mean, they're, 4th place in combo qualifying, I think?
Yeah, they're looking good. They're looking good all of a sudden.
Yeah, out of nowhere, they just had a revival, came from the dead type of thing.
Yeah, we'll see how long it lasts, though, right? Because usually, you can start off well, but then maybe you regress to the mean. Like, Tack would know more about this than me, but are they really looking better, or is it just like they're in a good moment,
Yeah, no, and I mean, we've seen cups not, correlate with qualification. Chile, they won those Copa Americas, didn't qualify for a single World Cup.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, it doesn't always correlate. And also, speaking of Tech, I'm glad you asked that. I'll ask that real quick. Do you know if he's joining? Because I hopped into his watch along for Mexico Honduras, which was crazy, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've heard. He said that he was going to join up soon, but I don't know.
Oh, I mean, he hasn't told me. Usually, Tack, the thing is, Sunday evening, Tack is usually working on the video for tomorrow, the USMNT abroad video. So it's a lot of work.
Oh, okay.
So usually that's what he does Sunday.
All right. But yeah, no. Hopefully we can get him on here because he said over there he has a lot of he thinks it's a fun idea to do the call shows, which it is.
Yeah. No, it's been fun.
But yeah, thanks for having me. Pete.
No worries, man. Have a good one. All right, Jack. Wait, hang on. Jack, please. What's up, Jack?
What's up, Pete? Oh shit.
No, you're good.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. So I just have a few questions.
Yeah, go for it.
Out of the top 2 teams in the Copa, who do you think do we have a higher chance of beating?
Argentina or Brazil?
Yeah, the top 2.
Oh, that's tough to say, right? I mean, I think that actually Brazil, because I think that Brazil is more unpredictable. They don't have a lot of direction right now. They still haven't replaced Chichi, and Tack will probably not agree with me here. They don't have Neymar. Nobody seems to be stepping up to replace Neymar. And what we've seen from Brazil in recent years, and this is a larger discussion about why Argentine players go on to become coaches and why a lot of Brazilian players don't. They don't have a lot of tactical discipline, the Brazil national team, right? Like that goal they conceded to Croatia at the World Cup was just shockingly poor tactics, shockingly poor recognition of the moment. Whereas, Argentina has figured out a style that works for them, and it only lasts as long as Messi is there. It'll be interesting to see, Di Maria gone and Messi definitely on his last legs, what they look like in Copa. But they're going to be a difficult team to face. They're going to make our lives difficult. They're very physical. They're very aggressive. They're not going to give you space. Brazil still kind of wants to play Football Bonito, but I don't think they have the tactical discipline that you can't hurt them in transition. I think there are opportunities to exploit Brazil in transition. Of course, both of them are very hard, and I don't think we will beat either of them, certainly with Berhalter in charge. But if I had to face one right now, this could change in 8 months. Right now, I'd fancy my chances with Brazil just marginally ahead of Argentina.
Yeah, that's good. What else? Let's see. What do we think about our U20 pool right now? Like just with like MLS guys like Jalen Neal, like our center back pool.
So they're not U20 anymore. These guys are U23, right? Because that cycle.
Oh, okay.
The under 20 pool is going to be a couple of holdovers from the last cycle. So guys who are eligible for both. So Nico Shakiris is still eligible, for example, for this cycle. Obed Vargas is still eligible for this cycle. Josh Winder is still eligible for this cycle. So those 3 will be very interesting. Then you get a lot of the under 17 guys who had a reasonably decent under 17 World Cup. Probably guys like, Cruz Medina or, Keiro Figueroa. Hopefully Diego Cochin continues to stay with the program. Mattia Kimbani is a weird one to me because he was the only U17 player to have pro minutes under his belt. And for some reason, we didn't bring him, which is mind-boggling to me. Noel Buck, by the way, is still eligible for the next under 20 cycle, but he's too busy being a traitor to England's under 19s. I think we're missing wingers in this group. Wingers is an issue. Center backs wouldn't be as much of an issue if we, used Matai, because if we have Mattia Kimboni and Josh Winder together at center back, I'd actually be pretty okay with that. But yeah, there are definitely holes, particularly at the winger position. Berchimas helps a little bit with that now that he's come through. What is Figueroa going to continue to develop? Because we don't really have a ton of other 9s. Austin Butler, not sure what there's a lot of question marks because it's the beginning of a U20 cycle. And usually that under 20 cycle, it evolves. 2 years is a long time in, when you're in that age group. So it tends to evolve and players come out of nowhere that you didn't know about. And, so it's hard to say right now, but I'd say there are holes for sure.
Yeah. And what do you think our center back pool overall with guys like Richards not getting minutes and Trusty starting to get into the groove of playing in a Premier League side?
Yeah, I think it's better than it's ever been, and
Okay.
I know not everyone's going to necessarily agree with that, but look, we have a Premier League captain starting at center back week in and week out. Now I know he's old, but he's still, so long as he's starting and playing well in the Premier League, there's no reason to eject him. Chris Richards has already demonstrated he can play in the Premier League, so even though he's not playing right now behind Anderson or Gahey, I expect one of two things to happen in January. Either Anderson or Gahey will leave, potentially Gahey because he's English, and then he'll start. He'll become a starter for Crystal Palace, which he's already showed he could do. Or if neither of them leave, then I expect him to get a loan, probably to PSV Eindhoven. And so I'm not as worried about the Chris Richards situation as some people are. Roy Hodgson doesn't appear to rate him, but they also have a very good center back pair. Although they conceded 2 to Luton this weekend, so we'll see what happens after this. Look, Austin Trusty, if we had a guy starting for a relegation Premier League side, in the past, he would be a locked-in starter for us, right? So it's just that Greg hasn't called him up. What is Miles Robinson going to look like now that he's hopefully going to go to Europe? That'll be interesting to watch. And then obviously you have John Brooks, who we refuse to use, but he's still 30, so he still has a few years left in him. Not sure. I mean, we all know why we won't use him. I'm actually more optimistic about our current center back pool. And then you still have guys like, McKenzie and obviously CCV, who I think are both limited in different ways, but are still starting and playing well for good sides in their respective leagues. For me, I'm a little more concerned about the future of the center back position because right? Like, Jalen Neal is the only under 20 center back from this last cycle that kind of went on to be a starter. He wasn't even in that under 20 World Cup, but he was in that pool, right? So I'm a little worried about the center backs. Josh Winder, how does he do at Benfica? I don't know. Brandon Craig couldn't even get minutes for Austin, the worst defensive team in the league. And then Justin Shea is playing for ADO Den Haag 2 or ADO Den Haag in the Dutch second division against other teams' academies. Like, that pool of center backs has not really stepped up yet, and that may change, but that part is a little worrying to me.
I will say this about Winder, though. I think Winder's probably in the best spot that he could be in terms of development, the team that he chose to develop him as a center back.
Yeah, it's just about, will he be good enough to play for Benfica, and will it take 3 years for them to realize that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's fine, yeah.
Like, he may never be good enough for Benfica, but definitely being in their academy and playing for them is a good spot for him to develop, even if he doesn't become a Benfica level center back,
And I guess that steamrolls into my last question. Did you read anything into Chris Richards getting 0 minutes?
I was baffled. I was baffled by that because nobody seemed to ask Berhalter about it, And I've heard some people say, well, he's not playing for Crystal Palace. But he wasn't playing for Crystal Palace when he started for us against Canada in the Nations League and was our best player, probably after Gio. I also think that we had 2 short center backs on the field. And I do think that with Gio serving in set pieces, we missed a little bit of Chris Richards', aerial threat. So it baffles me that, you're not playing for Palace. That doesn't mean you can't play against Trinidad and Tobago.
And that's the perfect opportunity to give him confidence to play for Palace and potentially in the future.
Right.
So I don't get it either.
Or even pulling him off in the last cycle against Ghana, where Greg says to him, I need to save you for me. Like, I'm trying to save your legs. And Richards is like, for what? Like, do you see the look that Richards gave him? Like, what is blood waffling about? It was like Chris Richards' face to Greg Berhalter was like every USMNT fan every time Berhalter does anything. We're just like, what? So it's baffling, and of course, no media asked about it.
No.
But I think Richards is a starting center back for us with Ream for now. Like, until I think that could be our starting center back pair, at least until Copa America, and then we can reevaluate.
And even our guys like Ream, like some of our guys, it looks on the field they're losing confidence in Greg to me, because Tim Ream gives him like the look like half the time, like what was it, the first game? Ream looked at him like he was clueless.
Well, so
that
did
first
you
game.
did you do the lip reading on that video? I think that video, we might have made a bit more of it than it was. They were talking about Geo. And, again, this comes back to Greg's system. It was like, in this moment, when this happens, Geo needs to do this, and he needs to go outside or whatever Greg was saying. And then Reem was like, he knows. For whatever reason, Greg didn't feel like Geo was following his instructions, and then he went and called Geo's name, and then the clip ends. So it could have just been a discussion about tactics. Like, I'm a big Greg hater. You know this. I don't think that clip was necessarily Tim Ream losing confidence in Greg. I think it was just a passionate discussion about what are Geo's responsibilities in a certain moment. But again, it comes back to like, well, what are Greg's instructions, and why is he asking Geo to do that? Is that, again, him trying to joystick the game? I don't know. I don't know if they're losing confidence. They seem to like Greg, but I think Copa America will be very telling, because this window was really disheartening. To be honest, all the windows since Greg has been back have been poor. Yeah,
and I also think Copa is the biggest opportunity for Greg to even get a sniff of the hot seat. Me.
Yeah, or if he doesn't win Nations League.
Yeah, if he doesn't do either of those things, then, or if he doesn't do both of those things,
he has to do
then
both.
I think,
in my opinion, he needs to win Nations League, and he needs to at least get us to a quarterfinal at least get out of the group. Okay?
Yeah.
And then if you get out of the group in second, which would be bad, you have a chance to face Brazil or Argentina potentially in the quarterfinal, right? So you can't get second in that group, whoever it is. Now, if we get Uruguay, there's a good chance we could get second in that group. Okay? So, there's a I think, I don't want to say it's an excuse, but if you get Uruguay in your group and you finish second to Bielsa's Uruguay, and then you lose to Brazil in the quarterfinals, it depends how you play. I think that's important. If you lose to Uruguay on goal difference, like you have level points with them, you get a draw with Uruguay in that game, and then the only reason is goal difference. Then you get to the quarterfinal and you lose 2-1 to Brazil, but you make it an exciting game. I think most fans will be like, look, it's not ideal, but considering the opponents and the bad luck that we got, fine. Now, if we finish top of our group, or if we don't get Uruguay and we don't finish top of our group, then we'll have nobody to blame if we're facing Uruguay or, Brazil in the quarterfinal. That's just the truth. We'll have no one to blame for ourselves because we didn't get first. Even if we get Ecuador, we should still get first. We're at home. And we're a similar team to Ecuador in terms of talent right now, overall. They have some players that are better, yes, but I'd say overall we're similar, and we're at home. Boom. Also, Matt Crocker said Greg was hired to beat the big teams in important games. Straight from the source himself, Matt Crocker. So if you're not doing that, then why did we hire you?
Yeah. Also, I think that, like you said, how we play, if we're not competitive against a Brazil and Argentina, maybe we get beat 4-0, but if they play really good football, fine. I'm fine with that. But
I'm not fine with that. But if 4-0? No.
4-0 against a Brazil or Argentina, and they just play out of their skins and they just destroy us, then fine. But if we get beat by Argentina and they're playing so poorly and it looks like we could take the game to them, then I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm not okay with. I'm okay with. Okay, we fought and we did our best and we still didn't win, and we get beat 4-0, whatever, 3, maybe not 4, but
I still
3.
think 3 is too much. I think you're at home. You have to find a way to make it a tight game. Lots of teams find ways to give Argentina and Brazil tough games.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we can accept a 3-goal loss to Brazil or Argentina. I think if we did that, it's probably because we tried to go out and outpossess them and they just killed us in transition the way that the Netherlands did.
And I think it'll be deja vu like that. If Greg's still in charge, it's going to be deja vu for us again. I don't see a way for us to put any kind of game against them with Greg in charge, how he plays with this team.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's a reality.
Yeah, no, I agree. As somebody said in the chat here, even Australia gave Argentina a close game, and I agree. It's possible to make it very tough for them using superior tactics, the right combination of players, and a solid game plan that maximizes your strength and covers for your weaknesses while also taking advantage of their weaknesses. That's really the key. And Greg has not demonstrated he knows how to do that. Remember, every other American manager has a marquee win in their career. Jurgen Klinsmann, he took on Portugal. Well, it was a draw against Portugal, right? But he did beat Ghana, right? He did beat Ghana in that group stage game. At that time, Ghana was very, very strong. He got out of the group of death, right? That's huge. He got us to a semifinal of a Copa America. Bob Bradley got us to a final of a Confederations Cup, beating the best team in the world in the semifinal, Spain, and 2-0 up to Brazil at halftime. Bruce Arena got us to the quarterfinal of a World Cup, beating Portugal, with Luis Figo and all these great Portuguese players at the time. Greg has no marquee wins. His best result he can point to is a very dull 0-0 draw with England. That's the best he can point
to. I don't know, man. I still think it was a mistake not going all out for Jose Mourinho back when we had the chance and we had the opportunity to just go hand and fist all out for Mourinho or a high class coach. We could have got him, and maybe then we would have been more of a favorite to win the Copa.
Yeah, I don't think we'll ever be a favorite to win a Copa if Argentina and Brazil are there, right? That's just
definitely not favorites to win, but like more of a favorite to even do something.
Right. And there's a universe where you go, look, we're at home. So that should supersede all other points except for Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. And so I will say this, if we don't get Uruguay in our group and we don't make it to a semifinal, then Greg should be fired on the spot. Because that means either you've topped your group, but you lost to a very poor team in the quarterfinal, or you got second in your group, which you shouldn't have done, and you ended up facing Brazil or Argentina in the quarterfinal and lost to them. So if we don't get Uruguay in that group, and we'll know in about 10 days, then the semifinal has to be the bare minimum for Greg to keep his job.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I don't know. The future is very uncertain right now for the U.S.
Yeah,
very uncertain. Whether it's
do you think there's a possibility that like Jamaica could beat us in the Nations League?
It's possible. I mean, it depends on what kind of Jamaica we get. If we get a Jamaica that's just on fire, everything's going super well for them, then yeah, there's probably a high chance that they win, that they beat us. But if we get the lazy Jamaica, the poor man's Jamaica, then yeah, there's no excuse for us to lose against Jamaica. I don't know.
No, there's no excuse. But if we approach Jamaica the way we approach Trinidad and Tobago, that's good. You know what I mean? Jamaica, they've been strengthening, right? They got Damari Gray now as well, who's a very good signing for them. And it's possible that now that they've qualified for Copa America, there could be some other dual nats that might be interested. So Jamaica could be actually strengthening between now and then. Now, if Greg loses to Jamaica, boys, I think, or even the final, let's say we play Mexico in the final and Greg loses to Mexico. I mean, what are we doing? I think he should be fired. I think he should be fired before. Then we could say, it's too close to Copa America. BJ Callahan.
Then we'll see the corruptness.
Let BJ take the Copa America. That's what I would do. If Greg does not win the Nations League, I would fire Greg, put BJ in charge as the interim coach, unless there is a coach who's ready to take us right now. But it is tough because you have like 1 or 2 preparation games and then a Copa America. Maybe. Depends who's available, right? I'm fine with giving BJ Copa America, and then after that you evaluate. If BJ takes us to a Copa America final, then maybe you just give him the job for 2026, Yeah,
I think he would be better than Greg. But then we will really see between now and then whether how corrupt, I'll say this, corrupt USSF is with how much they like Greg. Because if we get knocked out of Nations League and then we lose the Copa very, very badly and we don't even play well and we're not competitive, and Greg is still in the job, then I wouldn't know what to say, because that's somewhat of a reality right now. That could be a reality. and that scares me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the reality is, I think more likely than what's going to happen is we'll win Nations League. I think we just have enough quality to do it. And I think we'll end up doing the bare minimum at Copa. Like, I think we'll get out of our group and then we'll lose to, let's say, Ecuador.
Probably.
Or, I think that's what will happen. And then the fans will be outraged and they'll say, well, Ecuador's a good team, and they are a good team, but we're at home and we're a similar level in terms of talent with us in Ecuador. I really believe that. So
right.
We're just very poorly managed. So, it's pretty good. He got out of the group. Yeah, Ecuador's a good team, guys, and we won Nations League. The winningest coach bullshit, thing will it's going to be that, very likely, is what I'm expecting. I don't think it's going to be awful, just disastrous. I think the only way Greg gets fired, honestly, is if he loses the locker room. I think if the players turn on Greg, then I think it's over for him.
Because I think that's the most important input is the players at this point. Because we saw what happened before, where the players started coming out with interviews and they said, "Oh, we love Greg. He was a great coach." And then what happened? Greg became our coach again. So
yeah,
I think their input is
and there's some evidence too that it's also on the players. You wanted this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You wanted Greg back. This is what you wanted. The fans didn't want this. You wanted this.
We don't have a guy who's going to say this is unacceptable. Unacceptable. We can't be playing like this regardless of whether we win or lose. We can't be playing like this one-dimensional team. Yet we have these players who are potential elite potential players, and we're playing like we don't know how to play soccer, basically sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's been the story of the last 5 years. Ever since Greg took over, it never changed.
We don't have a guy that's on Greg, as the captain, just telling him, "Hey, we need to do this. We don't need to do that." BJ could have been our guy, but I don't know.
Hey, we got a couple guys in the waiting room here, so I got to move us on.
No worries. All right.
But thanks for calling in,
talking
Jack.
to you, Pete.
Appreciate it. Good questions.
Of course.
Tiago, how you doing, Tiago? Hello? Tiago, you there?
Yep. Can you hear me?
How you doing, Tiago?
I'm doing fine, Pete. How about you?
I'm good, thanks. Obrigado.
Nice. De nada. So I was listening to all this situation about Triple G. So I think it's so surreal for me to think because I live in Brazil, and here we don't everyone wants to be the coach of the national team. They become a hero of some kind, most of the countries that take football/soccer serious. But there in America, it's kind of the opposite, I feel like you guys, the coaches there don't want to be the US main national team. Because why then let a person who left the team get back 1 year later without doing anything at all?
Yeah. So, Tiago, I actually don't think that it's because the American coaches don't want to be the coach. I have it on good authority that Jesse Marsh wanted the job. I know that Jim Curtin definitely wanted the job. Oscar Pareja wanted the job. Caleb Porter has made no secret about wanting the job. There's guys like Brian Schmetzer or guys like Steve Cherundolo over at LAFC. And I think all of them would want the job. The question wasn't so much about that. The question was more, is U.S. Soccer going to give it to them? And the answer was no. They wanted Greg from the beginning, and nothing was going to change that.
So this is very scary than I thought, because here in Brazil, I know if you're aware, if you lose something big, you're out. That the coach is out, and every coach, every person, everyone knows that. But it doesn't stop the coach to do the best, even though they are in this huge pressure.
Yeah.
Uh, they can become the national joke. It's not going. I mean, if it happened last, would be like what 2,000 people gonna make fun of. But see, it happened in Brazil. It's going to be basically the whole country make a joke of you. But even if all that responsibility, they still be proud of become the coach. But how can the U.S. national team accept a guy who is the little joke of the internet? I mean, how many guys really like Greg Berhalter?
Very
Because
few,
I don't
very
feel
few. There are a couple soccer dads who are ready to, they are in love with him probably. Although they claim, oh, they didn't want Greg Berhalter back. But the way they always defend him, you think they do. Yeah, it was literally the players in the federation seemed to want Berhalter back. Not all the players, some of the players, particularly the ones that were in the leadership council, right? But yeah, most of the fans at this point never wanted him back, still don't want him back, and we're stuck with him. It's embarrassing. I agree. It's
so.
completely embarrassing.
So my question for you, my first question would be realistic talking. In a real world where the national managers finally do something right for a stance, for a change, and who they should call to replace him. Like, who will be the guy who accept the job, who will willing to take this like serious? I know soccer is not the most famous, but I mean, if you are American football or if you are basket, I mean, they would literally cut each other throats to get the job. But who is the most willing to take the job as the next U.S. national team,
Yeah, it's
in
fair.
your
It's a
opinion?
fair question. Look, we dawdled and we missed out on a lot of guys that were available. I mean, Lopetegui is available again. Patrick Vieira, I believe, is still available, right? I didn't want Jesse Marsh, but at this point, I'd take him over Greg Berhalter. I would take Jim Curtin over Greg Berhalter because I think he's more of a player coach, a player manager. Pellegrino Matarazzo, for me, would be the ideal coach because this is a guy who is American, and yet he has got a lot of his coaching education in Italy, where he lived, and then Germany, and has demonstrated now twice, both with Stuttgart and with Hoffenheim, that not only is he a very good coach, but he's able to get results with to get teams to punch above their weight. He saved Hoffenheim from relegation last year, coming in very, very late, and now he's got them pushing for a top 6 spot. So for me, Pellegrino Matarazzo might be the ideal option who's realistic. But ultimately, none of that matters. Oh, Vieira's at Strasbourg, they're saying. My bad. Ultimately, none of that matters because U.S. soccer only wants their yes men. They want guys who are, Greg Berhalter was always their guy from the beginning. The whole hiring the Matt Crocker as the, the technical director or whatever you want to call it was a big sham. It was always going to be Berhalter.
So you're saying that this guy, this guy that you just said, he would accept the job and he would be the best option that you guys are available in the country.
So I don't know if he would accept the job, right? I'm not his friend, but I think we could make a push for him, offer him good money, right? Look, the reality is the chance to manage the U.S. at home at a World Cup is something that not many Americans could turn down. And even though he has a good job at Hoffenheim right now, he might find come the end of this season that he's pushed Hoffenheim as far as they can go because they really don't have the budget to be a Champions League team on a regular basis. But if he can get them into top 6 and leave with his reputation intact, then no matter what happens with the U.S., he can always come back. He has that on his record now of getting Stuttgart promoted, keeping them in the league, and then saving Hoffenheim from relegation and getting them into a top 6, top 8 spot, right? He has that on his resume and he can always come back to club soccer, but spend 2 years and take the U.S. to a World Cup at home with the most talented generation that we've ever had and you offer him a nice little chunk of change to do it, not to mention the sponsorship opportunities that he would have and the notoriety he would have, and especially if he gets the U.S. to a semifinal or even a quarterfinal at home during the World Cup, his profile as a coach would only get better. So I think it is an attractive job, and I think we should throw the kitchen sink at Pellegrino Matarazzo, but I have zero trust in the federation to do it.
Do you realize that this is the exactly mental setup that I said that is worried about US national team? Be like, maybe he wouldn't accept the job. That's the thing that make me blow out my mind because non-coach, you can ask Tech, he will certainly agree with me. There's no coach in Brazil that would not accept to be the national team coach. There is no such thing because it's such a big honor. But just to think about that, one available coach wouldn't accept the job of to be the biggest representation of American soccer is insane, man.
Okay,
It's
but
just
here's the
it's
difference
insane.
also, Tiago. Here's the difference between Brazil and the U.S. With Brazil, you have a chance to win a World Cup, right? Whereas with the U.S., you have maybe a chance to make a semifinal. Maybe if you manage
They
really.
did well last time.
What?
You guys did well last time. Almost got further than Brazil.
No, we did not do well at the World Cup. We did terrible at the World Cup. We got out of a very weak group, and the first challenge we faced, we crumbled. It was not even close. So, yeah, I think that's the big difference between Brazil and the U.S. And like I said, the vast majority of American coaches would take the job in a heartbeat, including Jesse Marsch. The only reason Matarazzo might not take it is because he's in a good situation right now at a very good club where he's pushing for a Champions League spot in Germany. And that's hard to leave. So that might be the only reason, but I still think you can make it an attractive enough job for him. But to your point, yes, 99% of American coaches would take that job.
Okay, thank you, Pete.
No
The last
problem,
last question, just if you would choose any coach from anywhere in any country of the world to be, you can hire this guy now. Who would it be?
Does it have to be realistic?
No, just that you be a coach who coaches in some country of the world.
I would take Carlo Ancelotti because I think his management style is most suited to the international game. A lot of people would say Pep. For me, I think Pep would be very frustrated coaching the U.S. I think he would not have the time that he needs in order to implement his ideas. And I think that Pep is a little bit of a control freak. And I think that can work at a club level, especially when you can buy any player that, has to suit exactly the profile that you want for that position. But I think with the national team, I don't think Pep would be an ideal international coach. That's my opinion. I think international managing is very different, and it's a lot more about man management. Although you have to be a good tactician. You have to be good at setting up a game plan. But a lot of it is about filling your players with confidence and fight and the right mentality and then adjusting on the fly. So for me, that is Carlo Ancelotti.
Who is coach? What country is coaching?
He's coaching Real Madrid right now.
Oh, I mean national team. I'm national team like Germany, Japan.
Oh, he's Italian. He's an Italian. He used to coach Milan and Inter and Chelsea. He coached almost every team in Italy, and he also coached at Chelsea. I think he coached PSG also at one point. I'm not quite sure, but he's Italian.
Did he coach Italy? Did he coach Italy?
No, he never coached the national team. No, because in Europe, especially coaching a national team. Sorry.
No, I mean, choose our national team to like just go to be the U.S. national team, just like transfer a national coach for another for U.S. Who would you choose?
Ancelotti.
Like he's coach of
Real Madrid. He's coaching Real Madrid.
No, I mean country, like the coach of Italy or.
He's Italian. Yeah, he's Italian.
It's okay. I got it.
You said I could coach anybody in the world, right? You said I could pick any coach in the world, or you said I had to pick a national team coach.
Yes, but I want a
Okay,
national
I'm
team
sorry. I
coach.
misunderstood. I have to pick a national team coach already.
No, I was clear enough. Sorry, was my
Okay.
bad.
Then, ooh, that's a good question. Probably. This is a tough one. Current national team coaches in the world. Maybe Scaloni. You know, you probably don't love that because he's Argentine, but Scaloni is very good. I don't
Well,
know.
they are
Didier
doing well.
Deschamps,
They're
Didier
doing
Deschamps
better
potentially is a guy who you think could be, a good option. One of those two.
People are saying that Japan is the best team in the world right now.
Who is?
Japan.
Japan? No, not even close.
Okay, Pete. Bye. It was really nice to meet
Thank you,
you.
Tiago. Thank you for calling, man. I appreciate it. All right, last one. Wolo734. What's up, man?
Hey, what's up?
How you doing?
Great. Thank you. Just to answer Tiago's question, I think Xavi Alonso would be perfect for the US, but obviously it won't ever happen. And I think to say that the US is gonna make it to the semifinals or have your expectation to be semifinals, I think that's crazy.
Why do you think it's
Because
crazy?
because we have a coach that's proven time and time again that he cannot make good decisions that would affect the game. His tactical abilities are really bad, and I don't think it comes to level with South American teams and their coaching.
So I agree with you.
I think.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. Finish.
Yeah, I think if the real expectation for me is making it out the group and then getting knocked out right after.
Right. So let me put it to you this way: the word expectation is a tough one because it's kind of a subjective thing, right? If you take into account the players we have, the coach we have, and the moment we're at with this national team, then yes, you are right. The expectations are not high, right? And like I said, I think that's probably what will end up happening. But when I use the word expectation, what I really mean is standard, right? What I really mean is, given the player pool that we have, and given the fact that we are at home, and the fact that we are in pot one, which means we'll have an easier group than we would be if we were in any other pot, then the standard of expectation should be that we make at least a semifinal, right? And if we do not do that, then there needs to be accountability. So when I use the word expectation, it's more, probably the better word is the standard that we should expect, as opposed to, because realistic expectations based on the environment and the circumstances that U.S. soccer and Greg Berhalter has created, you're 100% right. And I agree with you. That's probably what will happen. We'll get out of our group, and then we'll lose to the first team we face in the knockout round.
Yeah, I would like to add that we have a really good player pool.
Yes.
And it doesn't matter how sexy the roster is going to be, as long as Greg is coaching. Like I wouldn't have high expectations.
Yeah.
As much as I am a diehard USMNT fan, I just don't want to get too embarrassed out there,
So, but my question to you then is, if we go and lose, let's say we get out of our group and we face, let's say, I don't know, Uruguay in the second round, and we lose 3-0. What would your response be? Do you think that's job well done?
No, and you know what's crazy? I don't think they would fire Greg.
No, I don't think so either.
I think there's a strong relationship there. There's something that they have. That's like
Yeah, it's a very
non-workable.
strange relationship because Bradley and Arena and Klinsmann were all fired for a lot less. Like Klinsmann was fired 3 months after we got to a Copa America semifinal. Think about that. 3 months after we got to a Copa America semifinal, they fired Klinsmann because he lost 2 games.
And I would say like not many people expected us to make it to the semis as well that time.
And I don't blame them. Oh, that time? Yeah. But you know what? We beat Paraguay, right? So that was the thing. We topped our group. No, we didn't top our group. We got second in our group.
We got second.
We got second because we lost to Colombia. But we still managed to beat Paraguay, who at that time had a much better team than they do now. And so we beat Paraguay. And then we had a bunch of red cards, a bunch of bans in that final game. We were missing Dempsey. We were also missing, what's his name? The center back, Josh Cameron was missing. And then I think a midfielder was missing as well. I think it was Bedoya who was missing. And then we put Wando up front. Like, of course. It was the goalkeeper. Brad Guzan was the goalkeeper instead of Tim Howard, I think.
Oh, Brad Guzan.
Yeah. So we lost 4-0 to Argentina, and then we lost 1-0 to Colombia in the third place playoff.
Yeah. So I'm going to switch topic. I have just 2 more things to say. And one, it's about Brandon Aronson. I do not want to see him on the Copa America roster if he continues to play poorly. I don't think he deserves to be on the roster. I think the player pool is really good right now. So if Greg still comes up with Brandon as the final man, it's a 23 roster, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. Look, I'm not a hater, but I just haven't seen any progress from him over the past 2-3 years, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's worth another roster spot selection.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely not making a case.
I think we have nicer younger guys, hungry guys, you know.
Yeah. So let me ask you this though: if Koleosho doesn't commit to us by Copa America, what 4 wingers would you bring to Copa?
Oh man, you know that's a tough one. I would also like to switch the formation.
Right.
But honestly, it sucks because our winger depth is not. It's not deep.
No, it's not great. That's the problem. It's like after Pulisic and Weah, the drop off is steep. Whether it's Paredes or whether it's Booth or Aronson or Zendejas, those are the options.
You know, if Booth is available, I would take him. But I get what you're saying because we would have to bring Aronson as a backup winger. You know.
Right.
But
we also have the problem of Olympics. What if we have to send Kevin Paredes to the Olympics?
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so that's kind of an issue. For me, I don't mind if Brendan Aronson is the 23rd man on the roster if it means we're sending Kevin Paredes and Taylor Booth both to the Olympics.
This is my thing. Look, like I don't hate him, but I do dislike it when he's the first guy to come off the bench. Right. I have a big problem with that because I feel like we could give those minutes to somebody else that I feel like will have a better impact. Like I've seen too much of Brandon Aronson trying to run at the ball and then getting like tripped over, you know?
Yeah.
So like I feel like Greg should, you know, really, really just sit in his room and draw up some like tactics and stuff like that.
Here's the issue, right? And I agree with you. Brandon Aronson is a huge problem. But Kevin Paredes did get his opportunity at home against Trinidad and Tobago, right? And he didn't take it. So it's not like there's anybody who's necessarily really pushing Brandon Aronson for his spot. That's the issue. That's one of the issues.
No, that's the issue because basically our wingers, they're all really young and they're either not playing or they don't get called up, you know?
Yeah.
So also one more thing. I do not want to see Matt Turner at the 2026 roster for the World Cup. I think Matt Turner is below mid, and I hope Gaga or Brady can step it up and take his spot, because Matt Turner isn't going to save shit for us. And I'm not a Matt Turner hater, but like, I just don't think he's going to save us.
So, but do you think he was good at the World Cup last year?
I think he was okay. I think he did his job really well.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times weren't really his fault.
Yeah.
Like Walker Zimmerman, on that what game? Who was it against?
It was against Wales.
And I think a lot of the errors came from miscommunication. Like that Netherlands game, we had a lot of miscommunication.
Mm-hmm.
Guys were just not really in it, focused.
Yeah.
And you could put the blame on the center backs too, I guess. But
see, I think the issue with Matt Turner is the same issue you have with Brendan right now, where who's going to take Matt Turner's spot? Hopefully one of Gaga or Brady or Cochin is ready, although Cochin will be 19, 20. I don't think he's going to be ready to start. But are Gaga or Brady ready to take that spot in 2026? Maybe. But we don't really know that, right? The trajectory of their progress is looking good. But are they really ready to be that number one at 22, 23 years old? Like, I think Gaga will be 22, just turning 22, and so will Brady, which is still quite young for a goalkeeper and very inexperienced. Are we ready to risk that? Probably a lot depends on what Matt Turner does between now and then.
Yeah, and Gaga's club situation, like if he returns to Chelsea, is he going to be their number one, So things like that we got to consider.
Definitely not next season. For sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, but where's he at 22? Right, who's he playing for? How is he playing? Yeah, I agree. I mean, ideally, those guys are the future. The question is, are they ready by 2026? And what does Matt Turner look like between now and then? For sure.
Yeah,
like they both have higher ceilings than Turner, right? Brady and Gaga. Will that? But higher ceiling is something they have to climb to. Will they get there by then? That's the question.
Yep, that is the question. And I think that's it. I know I was like hating, but it's not really hating.
No, the hating thing is weird. Like you're expressing your opinion about whether players should or should not be on the national team. Hating is if you were like, I don't like Brendan Aronson's personality or his style of. Even then, that's not really hating. You're really just expressing an opinion.
Yeah.
It's if hating might be if it's personal, but it doesn't seem like it's personal for you. You're just expressing your opinion, man. Like, don't apologize for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So who do you know when Josh Sargent is coming back?
Supposed to be January.
Oh.
Yeah.
All right. Well, yeah, that's it. That's all I gotta say.
Cool, man. Well, thanks for hanging. Oh, look, we got one more. Fumar Mota. Fumar, what's up? Fumar, are you there?
Yeah, I was wondering, what's up, Pete?
Hey, man.
I was wondering, how many spots do you think are actually up for the 2026 or even the Copa squad? Like I was trying to do a count in my head, and I think it's really maybe generously only 6. Like both winger spots, both backup winger spots and the backup center back and the left back. Is there anything else that's really truly up for grabs on the squad?
All right, well, let's just do the math real quick, right? Let's say you take squad of 23. So let's say you take 3 goalkeepers, 4 center backs, 4 fullbacks. That already brings you to 11. 6 central midfielders takes you to 17. 4 wingers takes you to 21, and then 2 strikers takes you to 23, right? So out of the 3 goalkeeper spots, I think 2 of them are probably up for grabs. Like, unless Ethan Horvath gets a move and is playing regularly and well, I think his spot should not be, like, he shouldn't be a lock, right? So that's 2 spots right there. Then if you look at the 4 center back spots, I think we can all agree that Ream, Richards, and probably CCV are locks. It's maybe that fourth center back spot, which I think is going to be Miles. But maybe Austin
if
Trusty could
Ream
break in.
or Miles is a lock, we're in trouble.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't want Miles to be a lock either. I'm just saying, are we talking about from our perspective or from Greg's perspective?
Well, I mean, Greg being Greg as an aside, I mean, just as rational USMNT supporters,
Okay.
our full player pool at our disposal.
Okay, so I would say there's 2 goalkeepers who are locks. I mean, who are not locks. So that's 2 spots up for grab. I would say there's 1 spot up for grabs with the center backs. Do you agree? Like, do you think Ream, Richards,
2?
and CCV are locks or no?
No, I think CCV and Richards are locks. I think Trusty's in play. I think McKenzie's in play.
Right, but of those 4 center back spots,
Dream Brooks is in play.
Right, but of those 4 center back spots, which players are locks? You said Trusty and CCV. Do you think Ream is a lock?
No. Richards and CCV are my only locks for Copa in 2026.
Okay, but Copa is now, right? It's the end of this season. If Tim Ream is still starting and playing well in the Premier League all season, why would he not be a lock on the roster?
That's valid. I mean, I don't think he's in good form for Fulham, and my reasoning, my logic with the center back pairing is that we want our 2 center backs for the future to be playing together for as long and as much as possible, and I don't see Ream being our answer in 2026. So if you can replace him, I would do it sooner than later. So even though Trusty may not have like the same credentials or the same type of performance this season as Ream for Fulham, I would bring like Trusty in. I wish Brooks, but somebody else, even move Richards over to left center back because he's kind of 2-footed, and then have CCV at right center back, and then start bringing in the 2 backups to cultivate them and get them ready for 2026.
Okay, but here's the thing. We can't look at Copa America as just a warm-up tournament for 2026. We have to go into Copa America doing the best we can to go as far as we can. And so that means taking the players who are going to give us the best shot of success in 2024. Then this is my opinion, then after 2024, we look at, okay, it's 2 years from now, we have this run-up. Is Ream realistically going to be there? Maybe we start phasing him out. But for me, if Ream, who's still captaining a Premier League team, and I know he's not in perfect form, but even for us, he's still been good. If Ream is still starting and playing mostly well for Fulham in the Premier League, there's no way that you leave him out of that Copa America roster for lots of reasons. I think he has to be there. So if you and I, do you agree though? Let's start there. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, nothing you're saying is illogical or irrational. I guess my thinking for the roster is more forward thinking as far as.
So we disagree about Copa being a thing in and of itself.
Yeah, well, and that's where my thinking might have to be corrected. And I spend a lot of time in the chat talking to guys who know more about football. I'm new to football. I'm an American football and basketball player.
Yeah.
But I'm new to especially international football. So, but I play a lot of video games. So my thinking with video games, even though it's not reality, is if you're young, if you're good enough and you're young, I'm putting you in. So I always try to get Richards in at left, and then I try to get somebody in young at right, and then say, hey, Ream, we appreciate your service. I know you're a captain at Fulham, but you're not going to be a factor in 2026. So it behooves us for player pool depth to slot somebody in that is going to be the man in 2026. Because I would rather, and this is the thing, we're not going to beat Argentina. We're not going to beat Brazil. And I've been schooled in the chat. We're probably not going to beat Uruguay. I thought we were the 3rd best team coming into Copa. If we're realistically the 4th, 5th best team, then semis isn't realistic, and then we might as well treat that center back pairing as training for 2026 for when it really matters.
So I disagree with you, Fumar. Hang on. I think semis is absolutely realistic. If we top our group, which we should, we are pot 1. The only caveat will be if we get Uruguay. But even then, We're at home. We should find a way to top our group, even though we're technically not as good as Uruguay. Then you top your group. You should be beating anybody you face in that second round. Anybody you face. I mean, in that quarterfinal. It's one game between the group and the semifinal. So I actually disagree. I think semifinal is realistic. And I disagree that we should be using 2024 and saying it doesn't really matter. We should just use it as a warm-up for 2026. I think we should put our best foot forward in Copa to get people excited about 2026. And because that's what you want to do, you want to go as far as you can in every major tournament. So I think we should bring Ream. So with that in mind, I only have one center back roster spot open, but you're telling me you have two.
But I can acquiesce on that point because there's nothing that you're saying that I'm like, oh no, like I'm not willing to die on the 2 center back hill.
Right.
Like I just thought, I was thinking we phase Ream out sooner than later. Thinking about 2026, because if Richards and CCV are a pairing of the future, I would rather them facing Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay now than facing France, Italy, England in 2026. But that's not a line in the sand disagreement. That's just a nuance, you know.
Okay.
But I don't think that Ream has played himself off the squad. I just think that for the future, I don't think he's the answer at left center back.
Sure. So let's go with the one extra center back spot. Okay. So that brings us to 3. At fullback.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
At fullback, you're right. There's probably really only one spot up for grabs, and it's A-Rob's backup. And it looks like Lund for now, but it's technically up for grab. Okay. So that's another one. So that's 4. Then in
he's
midfield.
A vibes guy to me.
Huh?
I said Lund, he's just a vibes guy. He's not an impact player, and I want an impact player to be a backup, or at least somebody that we feel confident. I mean, because in my mind, Dest can be backup. You can shift Dest to left back. You can start Scally at right back.
Yeah, and that's probably what we'll end up doing. But reality is we don't have another guy better than Lund right now. You might have guys that are a similar level, whether it's Tolkien or Wiley or Dewan Joe, but I think Lund is probably the guy for now, right? So for 2024, let's just say that spot is open. So that's a 4th one. Now let's look at midfield. I'm going to tell you who I think are, if we're taking 6 central midfielders, these are my locks. Tyler Adams, if he's healthy, Yunus Musa, Weston McKennie, Giovanni Reyna, and Malik Tillman. Those 5, for me, are locks. Now, if Tyler Adams comes back a very different player from this injury or he's not healthy, that's a different story. But let's say those 5 are locks. That leaves one spot open. And it's probably a fight between Johnny Cardoso and Luca De La Torre for that 6th spot.
I agree. Maybe Maloney is a dark horse.
Maybe, right? So let's say one spot in midfield is realistically open.
Right.
Okay? Now on the wing, we have 2 spots technically up for grabs. Pulisic and Weah are locks. But Aronson, Paredes, and Deas, none of them are locks yet, in our opinion.
Right.
So that's 2 spots. And then up top, for me, both Pepe and Balogun are locks. Unless Sargent comes back and is absolutely on fire for Norwich in the last 6 months of the season, in which case you could potentially send Pepe to the Olympics and bring Sargent as the backup. So do you...
let me ask you about this, Pete, because I think there's a way that we can sneak Sargent, Pepe, and Ballo, and that's because Trusty also plays left back, and you can also, Richards, if Berhalter keeps doing his thing where Richards is on the bench, Richards can be a backup right back. So I think that we can, if we are smart enough with our call-ups, we can call up 3 strikers if we have Trusty as the swing kind of backup left center back and backup left back, or you have Richards as like kind of the swing where he's the backup right back and also the backup center back. And then we can bring all 3 of our top choice strikers.
Here's the issue. If you're bringing 3 strikers, one of them is never going to play, right? They're just not, unless we get completely decimated by injuries. At the same time, we have an Olympics coming up, and that Olympics group does not have a striker. The striking options for that Olympics group are Duncan Maguire. I was thinking of Conor McGregor there. He's terrible. So I want either Pepe or Sargent, probably Sargent, to go be an overage player at the Olympics. Now, Pepe is still Olympic eligible, but if Sargent goes, he's the starting striker for the Olympic squad. If you bring 3 strikers for the Copa, one of them is almost never going to play. So I'd rather we keep that spot to give our Olympic squad a better chance of doing well than just bringing him for the sake of numbers.
And nothing that you said is incorrect, but my thing is, if we go with 3-5-2 and we only have Pepe and Balo on the roster, who is, in case of injury, or who is the backup 9? Because I think that was the dilemma that Greg was facing with that red card from Dest. We didn't have a 9. We didn't have a like-for-like sub. We don't have any other 9 on the roster. He pulled Reina out for the minutes issue with Dortmund and then put Scally in. But at the end of the day, if we go 3-5-2, we don't have another striker on the bench.
But Fumar, if you play 3-5-2 now, you're not starting Balogun and Pepe if everybody's healthy.
Oh, right. Okay.
Because if everybody's healthy, Pulisic or Reina, probably Reina should be that second forward. They play sort of like a withdrawn forward. Because if you're putting Pepe and Balo on the field, then Pulisic or Gio's coming off, or Weah, one of those 3.
Right.
So I would argue that one spot is up for grabs between Pepe and Sargent, and Pepe has the upper hand right now.
Yeah.
So if we bring that one spot, that brings our total calculations 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 8 spots up for grabs. At goalkeeper, right? There's 2 spots. It's Horvath, Gaga, maybe Drake Callender, maybe Chris Brady, although I'd say Gaga probably should be with the Olympics, and so should Brady. But maybe Celentano or Callender is in there with Horvath for those other 2 spots.
Is Stefan even playing? What's going on with him?
He's injured, it seems, for Man City. He shouldn't even be in consideration until he's playing again, in my opinion. Like, he's been out so long and has been so injury prone and so error prone for so long, he should not even be consideration for a national team call-up until he is playing somewhere regularly and well. So I don't even have him in my discussion right now. Then the only other real debate is left back spot. And if you want to argue, which you could do, that we don't bring a backup left back, it's risky though. If Anthony Robinson gets injured early on in the tournament, you're playing Dest there for the rest of the tournament. And that's not Dest's ideal spot either. You're going Dest and Scally. So
Dest and Scally.
Yeah, I mean, you could say, look, if we take out a winger, or you could use Kevin Paredes as that backup left back because he's sort of a wing back anyways, and he also doubles up as a winger. Or it could allow you to bring another midfielder because Tyler Adams could technically play right back in a pinch too. So now you can bring Johnny or Leonard Maloney, who can even play center back in a pinch. Like, there's some, I think, with that second left back spot, there's some fluidity. With that midfield spot, it's between Luca and Johnny, probably.
And we're in agreement there because I think due to the versatility, I mean, Trusty can play left center back, left back. Richards can play either center back position, right back. In a pinch, you can put Tyler Adams at the right back, but I wouldn't do it. But I just don't want to bring Lund. I don't want to make Lund a lock when he's not dynamic. I haven't seen anything impactful from him, and I'm still a little gun shy from the World Cup. I don't want any vibes, guys. So I don't want any.
I think that's fair.
I don't want Christian Roldan at left back coming to the World Cup because Berhalter's afraid to call up better or to be a little bit creative with his call ups when we don't want any injuries. So no injuries, we're good. Dest at right, Jedi at left. If an injury
we don't want any injuries, that's not up to us. We could still get injuries.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm saying in the sense of we're not planning for an injury. Like in worst case scenario, okay, Jedi gets hurt, we slot Dest over to the left. We have Scally that can play on the right. You have Richards that can play on the right. All right. And if we think along those lines, it opens up a roster spot for that extra striker or De La Torre, Johnny. It just relieves pressure, and that's what we really need. Midfield is actually, I think, is our strongest position in the pool. So if we can just take one less fullback, because Trusty can play two positions, Richards can play two positions, then we can bring Johnny and we're not, or De La Torre or Sargent, and we're not necessarily taking somebody off the roster. And my other addendum to that is, do you know if either the Copa or World Cup is going to be 26 man rosters?
Doesn't look like it. It looks like we're back to 23 now.
Okay.
But we'll have to see about 2026. It might change between now and then.
I mean, Trusty, I think Trusty is starting in the Premier League. And this is my thing, and I get a lot of pushback in the chat, but I don't believe that our player pool is good enough to discount in our face credentials. Trusty is starting the Premier League. Is Sheffield a Premier League team? No, but he's actually facing real live bullets in the Premier League. Brooks, his Berhalter thing is an aside. I'm just talking generally. He's a starter in the Bundesliga. I don't believe that we're not France. We're not England. We don't have the luxury of discounting your club team credentials and call in some other guy that's playing in the second division of whatever league he's in, because stylistically or personality wise or culture or whatever the thing that U.S. soccer is going to put out. I believe, and this is one of my main gripes with Berhalter, one of my main things with Marsh. I think that Marsh or anybody else other than Berhalter, they're going to call in the best 23. They're not going to play mind games. They're not going to try to think that he's Pep Guardiola and I can put this guy in and have him do this. No, this is America. We're dealing with our marquee generation. You call in the best 23 that we have available. Injuries as an aside, that includes Brooks. Like you can't say that you're a Bundesliga starter or English Premier League starter, but you're not good enough to make an impact in CONCACAF or in Copa.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you on all of that. And I think, with some exceptions, if the gap between two different players is marginal, then yeah, fit, for example, or attitude. There are other non-tangibles that can be meaningful if the gap between two players is marginal. But in these cases, I don't think the gap is marginal. I think it's pretty good. And so, like, for example, the gap between Brooks and Miles, for me, is pretty obvious. Or Brooks and Zimmerman, for example. So, yeah, I mean, I agree with you overall. Of course, there are some caveats to that. And, whether or not a player wants to be a starter, if they're not willing to be on the bench, but you want to be a bench player, there's some question marks. Do you bring them? Do you not bring them? But overall, yes, I agree with you. And I think, so these spots, we have about 7-8 spots that are up for grabs. And I generally agree with you. I think the fit is more a Berhalter thing of like, do you fit into how I want to play? That's bullshit, because we shouldn't be trying to fit into how he wants to play. We should be fitting to how the players that we have. But yeah, I got to let you go, man, because it's been almost 2 hours now, and I'm losing my voice, and I have one more President Chip's just going to pop back in. But thanks for hopping on, Fumar. Appreciate your passion.
Sure.
Thanks, man. Talk to you soon. All right, President Chip, what's up?
Hi, sorry, I just found I had some time, and I wanted to say two more things real quick, if that's okay with you. Just real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
So I asked, the group question, the group scenario. I don't care who's in the group. I mean, well, it matters a little bit. Like you said, we have Uruguay, or we have some group that just completely screws us over, and it's like, it's gonna be extremely hard to get out of it.
No, even if we have Uruguay in the group, it's not going to be extremely hard to get out of it. It's the bare fucking minimum.
Okay. Then that even gets my that might prove my point a little bit more. Do you think if somehow miraculously this man found a way to not get us out of the group, by this man I mean Greg, is there any scenario where this man gets fired? Like, I'm not saying let's lose purposely, let's have the players start a conspiracy and lose the game on purpose. No, I mean, what do you think is there any way that this man could get
is there any way he gets fired if we get grouped at Copa America? There is a possibility. but I wouldn't bet money on it.
I mean,
I mean,
I can think of a few
nobody
excuses, I
believed
guess.
Berhalter was going to come back. Nobody, right? It was so obviously the wrong decision to bring Berhalter back, to the point where, I cracked a joke on Twitter about, a month before he came back and said, this is kind of all setting up for them to bring Berhalter back. And people got mad at me for even saying it, that it was a possibility. Nobody thought it was even a possibility. Even the media didn't think it was a possibility. Even the Berhalter defenders, the Berhalter lovers, the Berhalter simps, even they didn't think it was a possibility. And yet it happened. So my faith in U.S. soccer to have any form of accountability of any kind and to take into account results or performance over their deep, passionate, unending, earth-shaking love for this bald moron, I just have no faith in that. I have no faith in U.S. soccer to do the absolute obvious thing in that moment. So I do think there's a chance that they just can't withstand the pressure, and even the sponsors, are like, what the fuck? But if they talk to the players after Copa and they say, yeah, we like Greg, he's a good guy, I think there's still a chance he comes back, even if we get grouped at Copa America.
Yeah, and it just confuses me because we've all heard the news of that, the women's team getting the best option that they could have gotten, or one of the best options. It's the same federation, so why can't they do the same with the men's team? You know what I'm saying? That's what confuses me personally. Is that I don't get what type of bullshit's happening on the higher ups for the men's side that you can't get us somebody good like you did for the one.
I have a
It's
theory.
just confusing me.
I have a theory, and I have zero
What's the
data.
theory?
Let me be very clear. This is just a theory at best. I have zero data to back this up. Okay. We all know how Greg was hired the first time. It was his brother. Was there a clause in Greg Berhalter's contract that said if he got us qualified to the World Cup, then it triggered a second cycle contract for him at $1.6 million a year? Because if so, if his brother Jay set that up nicely for him, which, like I said, I have zero evidence to back this up. The only evidence I have, and it's not really evidence, is that Greg often referred to 2026 in his first cycle. He was always like, there's 2022, and then, even beyond that, 2026. And, he didn't say, I'm going to be in charge for 2026, but he definitely gave the impression of a guy who felt fairly confident in his job security. So is there a universe in which his brother, who set him up with this job, put a clause in his contract that U.S. Soccer went, if we fire him now, that is $6.4 million that we'll still have to pay Greg, and we may not be able to afford that. I don't know. I'm not defending them. I'm just asking because it seems so intangibly bullshit that they rehired him. So that is the only logical conclusion I could potentially make in my head.
My conclusion was this, and it's pretty much an exact copy. A little bit different, but they had him with basically the guarantee that when they hired him in 2017, after 18, after we failed to qualify for the World Cup, they told him, okay, listen, we have a group of young guys. We have this talent pool for the future. We're going to entrust you to carry this team to their prime all the way to 2026.
Right.
I think they promised them that time, so because they wanted him / trusted him due to nepotism, whatever the reason is, but they trusted him to be able to basically have this team grow. I guess I'm trying to figure. That's just like the most reasonable explanation, but at the same time, there is no reasonable explanation.
No.
These guys are just stupid. Nepotism runs wild in there.
And a probably more logical conclusion is what Derek Rishi says right here in the chat. The logical conclusion is that they live in their own bubble and don't care about criticism in the end. Yeah, that's probably more likely than not what it is. I'm just speculating. Is there any other reason? Because there was no logical reason to rehire Greg. There wasn't one. So I don't know, man. I don't know. If I will say, I'll hold to that though. If we get grouped at Copa America, I think there's a chance that Greg gets fired, but I wouldn't bet my house on it.
Okay. Well, also, by the way, I want to bring up, just to clarify, but you said Bruce Arena got fired. I'm pretty sure he would have gotten fired immediately after, the failure, but he actually technically didn't get fired. He resigned.
Yeah, I mean, he resigned. He got
And
fired.
but I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, his contract was until the World Cup, right? He didn't qualify for the World Cup, so it essentially terminated his contract, right? So he didn't really get fired. But Jurgen Klinsmann, and we never talk about this. Yeah, he did lose to Mexico, and we did lose to Costa Rica, and those were two awful. Actually, the Mexico game was a lot closer than people remember. It was a very tight game. Mexico should have Rafa Marquez sent off for literally going full headbutting Pulisic's knees on a goal scoring opportunity. No, that's literally what happened. Rafa Marquez died.
No, I know.
Body in the way of 17-year-old Christian Pulisic when he was the last man, and he didn't get a red card.
That's child abuse.
Right. And then Rafa Marquez goes and scores the winning goal. So actually that game was quite close. Obviously the game against Costa Rica, was a disaster. But this man was 3 months out. Not even. This man was 2 months out from taking us to a Copa America semifinal. And we fired him. Whereas Greg gets this long-ass leash.
I mean, yeah, there was no Jurgen's brother in the federation to save him.
There was no nepotism that from the very beginning. The MLS cabal didn't want Klinsmann because he was calling them out. Klinsmann told players to stop coming home. He told Bradley and he told Dempsey and he told all these guys, stop coming back to MLS. What are you doing? You're in the prime of your careers. You should be pushing yourself. Why did, and I don't know if you remember this or how long you've been following soccer, but it became a public spat with Don Garber. Like, I think Sunil Gulati liked Jurgen, but I think that the people who ran SUM and MLS hated him because he wasn't afraid to call out their bullshit.
Yeah. The biggest story I personally, because I did look kind of into it, but I also didn't at the same time. The main thing I did look into was because Jurgen, whenever he would talk about it, he said that he knew if he didn't start off well, he was gonna get fired. And he doesn't know the reason. He just said he got told by the and this is completely paraphrasing, by the way. This did not. I'm not an official source.
Wait, Greg Berhalter said this?
No, Jurgen. He said going into the cycle, into his last World Cup cycle, that despite the success of Copa, despite what he did in the World Cup in 2014, that he had stayed a while, and that he needs to get results. Mexico's going to be a big game. No, we never won on the road against Costa Rica at that point. We still haven't to this day. So he said, and the way he taught, you said it perfectly. He knew that talking bad about MLS and saying how pushing players to go, elsewhere, and that generation going back to MLS and him not exactly liking that, to say the least. He knew it was pretty much if he doesn't get results, it's over.
Yeah,
because if you talk bad about the higher ups, talk bad about MLS with this U.S. Soccer Federation, I'm afraid your job's in jeopardy if you don't get results. And that's what happened. He eventually got kicked out. Now he's chilling in South Korea.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how he's doing over there.
I don't know, man. But I'm gonna have to go. It's been 2 hours. I'll read a couple super chats here and then I'll sign out. But thanks for chatting. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. Yeah, thanks for having me on, man.
Gibberino says if Turner's out, you had to choose between MLS goalkeepers, Calendar, Celentano, etc., or Slonina and Horvath. What do you go with? Also consider their passing. I don't think either Celentano or Drake Calendar are good passers of the ball. I think they're the same level as Turner, if not worse. So it's a no-brainer. Or Slonina and I misread this. Slonina and Horvath. Calendar, Celentano, or Slonina and Horvath. I'd probably just make Horvath the starter. Like, I don't think Horvath is any worse than Callender or Celentano. I don't think Slonina's ready to be our national team goalkeeper, but why is Turner not in the conversation? I don't know. I tried to answer that to the best of my ability. It's a little tough. Pete, are you intact coming to DFW for the Nations League? Probably not, Jeff. We are going to be doing the live watch along and the post game and stuff from home. Pete, if I have time, there's another thing. Yeah, I saw that. President Chip. Do you think Baker Whiting will go to the Olympics? Also, do you think Griffin Yow can make a push? It's a good question. Griffin Yow's not a very good player, but we also don't have a lot of it. I think it depends. If Kevin Paredes and Taylor Booth are there and Bernard Kamungo are there, I think we have enough winger depth. Then I don't think Griffin Yow should be in the conversation. I don't think he's a very good player. He wasn't even good in MLS, let's be honest. Baker Whiting, I have no idea. I think it probably depends on whether or not Brian Reynolds gets released. If Brian Reynolds gets released, then I think it's unlikely that Baker Whiting goes. That's my honest take. All right, guys. Fun 2 hours. Thanks for hanging. I'll see y'all soon.